Well, a few people liked my ranking of the main Sonic storylines, and the Lost World video hit 1k. So let's talk about Sonic again. Oh, right, this is a thing. I was busy playing Half-Life 2 while that fiasco was going on, and it was a more rewarding experience to engage with than that hell topic. So instead we're going to talk about a different, less all-over-the-place part in the Sonic discussion. The storylines in all three Riders games. Now, I didn't get a chance to cover these last time, mainly due to time, and also because I haven't played them. Maybe I'll give these games another chance in the future, but as a result I won't have the same personal connection to these stories like the others, and it won't be as in-depth. But with that being said, I quite like Sonic Riders' story. Sonic Riders follows Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles taking part in a World Grand Prix against the Babylonians. Jet, Wave, and Storm. Also Amy's here too, I guess. Riders' story is like an evolution of Hero's story, with some of the world-building ideas of SA2. I've never been a huge fan of the Babylonians, but they're fun rivals to have an alright dynamic. There are also some rather good jokes that got a laugh out, especially with Jet and Storm. It's good to have some slapstick moments that don't involve Sonic and Eggman for a change. One part I always like is the one with Jet dreaming of a cash prize. There's no wavy dream transition, just a hard cut between both shots. Also, I like how they kind of put some planning with their attempt of sabotage, though how Tails didn't notice the bomb planted on Sonic's board is a bit odd. I know I said Unleashed was where they began embracing goofy Eggman, but this is where they start to push it a little bit. Some of the parts with him are pretty good, though that special race line is still off.
Not just a race, but a special race to see who's the fastest!
I heard the producers didn't fully question the phrasing of this line, and Mike Pollock sort of went with the flow of it. This was early days when he was recording for the game, so I guess he didn't see it as too much of a deal compared to if something like this came up today. But the main attraction that always catches my attention is the facial expressions. You thought Adventure 1 or random Gmod videos had wild faces? Oh ho ho. There is not a single cutscene that doesn't have some sort of exaggerated face. They really went all out. The way they do the shrinking pupils or varied mouth movements is pure perfection. I do like the texture and art style. The hero's aesthetic with a more futuristic layout does mix well and fits with the world of Sonic, feeling like an evolution of Grand Metropolis. It's interesting how the 15th anniversary had two games that were complete polar opposites in terms of art and story direction. Both the 2D and CG cutscenes are well animated, though the latter feels a little jarring compared to the ones of Shadow and 06. But it manages to introduce and set up the premise quick and to the point. Also, Tails' model, both CG and in-game, looks really off to me, mainly the mouth placement. It's a fairly serviceable story, and I wasn't expecting too much from it being a racing spin-off storyline. But for the most part, it's an alright story with some good moments that managed to salvage it. It's fine, and the game did well enough for a sequel that I don't know if it's better than the first one. But I can't tell you whether or not the story is better this time.
I hate gravity!
Sonic Riders Zero Gravity story is kinda like Bayonetta 2's story. It's alright in its own, but not quite as memorable as its predecessor. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It has the same familiar feeling of the previous one without the Grand Prix aspects. Just a standard Adventure of the Week story. And when I began to write about it, I felt a little underwhelmed. But the more I think about it, this wouldn't be a bad direction for the series to go, story-wise. Especially for the 2010s. If they go for this approach of smaller scale adventures that still have a brilliant continuity. Similar to Heroes. But saying that the story isn't anything too overly major. There's a situation with an army of robots wanting these magical ring devices, and they're sort of connected to the Babylonian garden or something. Eggman is trying to harness them. It's a bit odd. The Ark of the Cosmos is an interesting idea, but they're just standard MacGuffins with the same ability of affecting gravity. It would have been a good idea to have each one grant an additional power, like slowing down time, an elemental power, or a tornado ability. Like the gems in 06, but not as broken. Again, the small Eggman moments are a highlight, like when he sneakily takes the Ark of the Cosmos from Jet, and when he points out the black hole and then just opens a trapdoor to disappear from the situation.
The world is doomed!
I also think the visuals aren't as pretty compared to the more expressive colours of the last game. It's not bad, but it does stand out more. If they centered the focus towards the proper HD consoles of the time, it would look prettier, but I guess they prioritised Unleashed to be the debut game for the Hedgehog engine. The voice acting across both games have their range and quality. The 4Kids cast were polarising until Unleashed, but despite the common issues like certain delivery cues, they're not too bad. Like I said, Griffith began to improve its secret rings, and it shows up here too.
So you're the ringleader behind this one too, Eggman?
Jet's voice does lean more closer to the Warthog though, but it isn't as distracting. It's limited, but I do think the rivalry between Sonic and Jet is fun, and I wish they got the chance to push it further. It seems like they tried doing something similar with Shadow later on in Team Racing, but I know it isn't really the same. The other character interactions are fun, like the one with Amy and Storm. They continue that joke of characters being overwhelmed with too much exposition. I previously said Adventure 2 was the only story where everyone had full plot relevancy, but both of these share that too. But I think an additional character could have been added just for a bit of variety, like another Babylonian member or someone connected to the rings. As long as that character adds to the story instead of being there just for the sake of it, as we see later on. The CG cutscenes are a step up too, and some of the music feels close to 06 in some of them. The final battle against some massive robot overlord thing, and there's some symbolism related to Babylonians and shooting stars. We went from being descendants of genies to aliens who are also genies. Their words, not mine. This isn't a bad story, but there's something about it that feels missing from last time. There isn't much to properly sink into, but on its own it's a fairly solid enough sequel that expands on some of the ideas from last time. It's just not quite up there for me. But like with many trilogies, you didn't have that last one that doesn't quite hit the landing. At all.
Oh no!
I think Sonic Freeriders is the only divisive Sonic game from the 2010s that everyone unanimously agrees is bad. People talk about how Lost World, Forces, and the Boom games will gain cult followings years from now, and I guess Sonic 4 has its fans, but chances are there won't be any video essays saying Freeriders is better than you remember anytime soon. If that happens, I will buy this game and the Kinect. And that's not me adding hyperbole. That's a promise. But does the story salvage it?
No!
It's a standard Grand Prix story, there's some extra characters, but that's really it. But I'll be fair and talk about some parts I like. This is the first game with the new voice cast, and they all do a very alright performance. Most of the characters are portrayed alright, especially Team Sonic, and that's about it. As you know, the cutscenes are now presented as static character poses, like the handheld games that move around, and most of the story is basically interviews / minor events that happen between races. The event is hosted by Eggman in disguise, yet they sort of know it's him, but still play along. Also, Eggman's disguise has blonde hair, which reminds me of Morph / Steve from Sonic Boom, but I'm sure that's just a coincidence. Also, hope you like Oma Chow too, since he has the most lines out of any character. There's no real connection to the previous stories, or no new MacGuffins. Most of the events differ based on each pathway. Sometimes one team wins this race in this story, or they lose in another. Wave and Storm are mostly alright along with their new voices, but they feel a little one note. I like how Storm and Knuckles share the same voice actor each time though. But Jet's voice...
I knew my only real competition was Sonic the Hedgehog. A legendary Windmaster doesn't accept anything short of absolute victory.
It does not fit him at all. He just sounds like a random villager character from Sonic Boom. Now that I think about it, of all the characters that could have appeared in Boom, how Jet wasn't considered is almost baffling. He had the episode where Sonic and Tails use hoverboards, their sword the Eagle, Swift the Shrew is close to Jet. The pieces were all right there. Anyways, there's not too much to their role here. There's some stuff with Jet and Sonic, but it's a more friendly rivalry compared to last time. Also, it's a minor nitpick, but why did Wave's nickname for Tails go from Shorty to Shrimp? Shadow and Rouge are just kind of the Team Rocket for the story. They're only mostly there for the cash prize, and they brag about how they're gonna beat the others and that they're the best. And the third member breaks down and they just don't really care. I don't know if this was written before or after the restricted character mandates were established, but I guess this game is the origin of the disliked post-06 Shadow portrayal that will be prominent later on.
Good news. I don't blame you anymore.
2/3 of Team Rose plus Vector are kind of alright, I suppose. Vector's spot on, Amy feels like a mixture of a Heroes and Boom portrayal, but there isn't really too much to them. There's a race against Metal Sonic at the end, but there's nothing really overly significant. It's dull, it's a massive step down compared to the last two, and feels like it's doing the bare minimum even compared to some of the stories that would later follow. Perhaps I treated Generation's story too harshly. I don't know if full motion cutscenes would have made it more bearable, but as it is, it's nothing really worthwhile. You want to know how little this story matters? The footage you're seeing right now is from the only channel that uploaded all the cutscenes in HD. Apart from some 360p rips some years ago, the Real Sonic Fan is the only channel with HD uploads of the cutscenes. There isn't even any proper translation of the Japanese dub. Not yet, at least. Is there anything else to say? Sonic's pose here is the exact same as the Smash Bros. Brawl artwork. Everyone has regular proportions compared to the modified limbs of the other games. The main theme Free is sung by Chris Madden. who also sang a Thomas the Tank Engine song. So that's a connection these two franchises have. I don't know, let's just wrap this up. Story-wise, the Sonic Riders trilogy is rather experimental. There are some good ideas here, but I feel like they didn't get the chance to push it fully compared to some of the other spin-offs. But with the first two, you could tell they didn't want to miss out on telling an overarching story. These two are still alright attempts at expanding the world of Sonic in a fun way. They're not as thematically rich compared to the other Sonic stories at the time, which is probably why they aren't brought up in discussion as much, though this isn't a bad thing. And while Free Rider's story isn't awful, it really dropped the ball. I never had any investment in the Riders games, but it does suck seeing the series end like this. And it not only killed the Riders series, but also the Sonic spin-offs in general for a good while. Outside of crossovers, mobile games, and the Boom series, there wouldn't be another mainline spin-off for the series until Team Sonic Racing 8.5 years later. Speaking of Team Racing, I was going to cover its story for the video, but there isn't a whole lot to it either. It's just Free Rider's story, but better. There's more engaging character interactions and a proper story, but not much for a whole segment. I'm sure most people forgot this game even had a story campaign. Well, it does. This is the part where I ask Sega to make a new Riders game, and while I still don't have investment in the series,
I agree.
if it happens, Sega will likely source it to another studio to handle it, with how the main series is Sonic Team's top priority nowadays. I just hope Blind Squirrel's recent work on Colors Ultimate doesn't affect Sega's trust in other studios handling Sonic again. At least Riders X looks promising. But that's all for now. At some point I'll cover the stories of the Sonic Boom games. Might take a while depending how much there is to cover and if anything else comes up. I should have a few more videos being prepared to round off the year. I've been just taking it easy since some videos over the summer are much more bigger in scale than usual. I'll also be back in college on campus by the time this is up, meaning I won't have as much time to access my editing software compared to last year, so this pattern should work better. Like I said, I did do a video ranking all the main Sonic storylines. It is very long, but if you haven't seen it, please give it a look. But anyways, thank you for watching, consume Raycons and VPNs, and I'll see you next time.
You know it, Knuckles?
It's a pretty famous ruin among us.